everyone. Welcome back to Mental Health Bar. Thank you very much for joining us again this week. I am joined by the wonderful Tez Ilyas, comedian and author. Thank you very much for joining us, Tez.
Good afternoon, Chris. Thank you for having me. I don't know what time the viewers are watching this. Could be a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening for them, or good night, regardless. Hello.
Could be any time. Could be. This is a podcast / video on YouTube, so they could be watching it on the toilet at 1 a.m. in Las Vegas. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. Good luck to you, buddy. If you're watching this at 1 a.m., you've had a bad time in Las Vegas. That's what it is. But thank you very much for joining us, Tez. I've known you for a while. Like, we met back at Electric Mouse in London, and third gig, right? You were doing your
third... that was my third ever gig, my first ever non-showcase gig.
What's a show?
In many, like, because I did a stand-up workshop, and so at the end of it, there was a showcase. So I did my one, and so my course was running on Saturdays. The other course was running on Wednesdays. So I did both of those showcases. And then so your gig was the gig that you met me at. Was probably my first ever proper gig.
Proper gig, that's crazy. I like, so because you were a different looking person then. You were business suits and clean shaven, right? You were clean shaven.
I was coming from work.
Were you a lawyer? That's what you were, right?
No, I was in the civil service.
Oh, you were in the civil service.
So I was at the Home Office. What would I have been doing? I was working in the Olympics at the time, actually.
Were you? What were you doing in the Olympics?
100 meters mainly. No, jokes. Got them in. Just preparing the Olympics for. So at the Home Office, our job was to make sure they were safe and secure for the public and everyone who was there, the athletes and stuff. So yeah, that was our job at the Home Office. So I was in that.
Oh, right. Okay. Was that the gig? I don't know. Do you remember? But was it the gig? I'm not going to mention the comic, but he now lives in America. Where he had paid someone to pretend to have a heart attack. Was that because that was an Electric Mouse? But was that the one?
Was that the sort of knockoff Russell Brand character?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I think it was. That was, and I remember the person going on and thinking, wow, because there was a lot of confidence there.
Confidence, blind confidence.
There's a lot of confidence there and a lot of like performer skills.
Yes, absolutely.
So I was quite excited to watch, going, oh wow, this is going to be cool. And I remember watching them, just thinking, is this good?
Yeah, you don't know, do you?
I don't know if this is good or not.
I don't know if it's good.
I can tell you now. I won't. But I can tell you now what I think. No. But then I was like, is this comedy? Okay.
But confidence.
I remember that.
Counts for a lot, doesn't it? I think that people underestimate how much you can have confidence instead of talent. You can just substitute one for the other, and that was.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, and it wasn't the point of that story wasn't that he was just confident on talent. It was the fact that he paid a person to pretend to have a heart attack, and I think that's why I remember. I mean, obviously meeting you was a momentous occasion, Tez, but I think that's why I remember that gig so much, is because I've never seen anyone pay another member of the audience to pretend to have, so that they could save them. That was the whole bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it, wasn't it? That was mad. What a time. You know what? The open mic circuit in London specifically was a magical time around that period. Like, I mean, you can delete some, you can cut some of this out. But do you remember...
We don't edit, but...
Okay, I won't mention names then. But there were some real characters, though, around that time.
What kind of people, though? Are you talking about the guy who used to go on and just freestyle at the end, and people were like, is he amazing or is he awful?
God, not even the guy who kept a blog about everyone. The guy who kept a blog about everyone, and he'd badmouth everyone, and then found a second career in Germany, in German speaking.
I knew you were going to say that guy. He's doing well in Germany. He's big in Germany.
There were so many characters. Like, I remember at the time thinking, this should be a sitcom. Like, there are people here, like, and I count myself as one of those that are like, they feel like they want to be stand-up comedians and they need to go through this process to get to the other side.
Yeah.
And then there were some people that were using it as sort of like, we need to get out of the house and make friends, and we are not going to progress at any other stage but apart from this. Yeah. But this will be our life, our social life, everything. This will be our everything.
Yeah.
And then there were some people who just needed therapy, Chris.
There are definitely some people who were using it. They were taking the problems they had with their parents out on us as watchers, as an audience. They definitely were.
And as fellow open micers as well.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just a mad time.
It's a mad time, but I'm glad. So I'm glad I did it. Obviously, for both of us, it worked out. We're both in that career. You obviously doing very well. Very well. How's the? You got a book out and everything. So
I do have a book out which I keep handily here. This is my mum's copy.
Is it your mum's copy?
Diary.
Did you sign it?
Secret Diary of a British. I did. I put a nice little.
Oh my!
I won't read it out, but I put a nice little message in it and stuff. The Secret Diary of a British Muslim, aged 13 3/4. So it's about my life. Good. Growing up in Blackburn in the 90s, Blackburn, England in the 90s. So yeah, it's
is there another Blackburn?
Available? There's a Blackburn in Scotland.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
And there probably is a Blackburn in America somewhere. They always just copy your names, don't they?
You say there's so many different places, but that's congratulations on that. I would find it incredibly hard to write a book, so well done on that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, the idea was. I remember when I first sat down to write it, and I thought my target was 80,000 words. I ended up writing a lot more than that. But my target initially was 80,000 words, and I thought that's 8 university dissertations. I barely wrote one. I did write one, but barely. And the idea of it was just, I thought this was beyond me, but turns out it wasn't. So
wasn't behind you. It's in things. You've sold them. I've seen it. I've seen reviews on Amazon. It's going very well. It's excellent.
Yeah.
I have not bought a copy yet, but I will be. Just waiting for that sweet Twitch money to come in. Almost 3 figures. No, I don't know what it is. But you're doing really well. And but when I met you, obviously you were third gig in. You were going through. You started out. And I know the next time I think I saw you was when you did that. Kate and Gary and you did that show in Edinburgh, which was
Gag Songs and Bombs.
Gag Songs and Bombs. Yeah, that was it. That was it.
That was so much fun.
That was such a good Edinburgh. It was such a good Edinburgh, that one.
It was my first Edinburgh. That was old school. It was my first Edinburgh. It was actually the first time I'd been to the festival.
Same.
So I'd never been to the Fringe before that. And we just thought, actually, neither had Gary or Kate. And that was a lot of our experiences, working class kids. Like we just, this wasn't our thing. It wasn't on our radar. Yeah. So we had no idea how it worked. We found out that, over the year, because 2010 I started, 2011 is when we went. So over the year we found out there's a free Fringe. This is how you participate, blah, blah, blah. I met them very early. We got on really, really well. So we thought, let's do a show together. And for people who don't know, like Edinburgh Fringe is where you go to, you make your calling card and get noticed by the industry. But for newer comics, is a chance to go up there and share an hour. And so Gary Troll, who's on Twitch actually, and Kate Lucas, good friends of mine, very good, funny comics. We decided to share an hour where we do like 15-20 minutes each. Actually, Laura, do you remember Laura Carr?
Yeah. I'm still.
So Laura Carr was our MC.
Right.
I mean, that was a decision that we regretted, not because she wasn't good, she was great, but it was kind of like when we got there, we were like, oh, we should really be doing this ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we should be learning how to cold open a show, but we were all too scared. And we were like, well, let's get an MC to warm the crowd up before the first person goes on. And now I'm like, why didn't we just go on? I was like, because we rotated the lineup every single day. So we had a chance of going on first, second, and third to make it fair on ourselves and to get the right experience for each other. But it was just it was good. It was great. I had such a good time watching shows and meeting up with you guys and making friends with like Ignacio Lopez was like the show before me. So I got to know him really well. But it was great.
It's that I think that so those, and like you mentioned, working class. Being working class, for the people that are for middle class people, like the Edinburgh Fringe is it's on their radar. It's something that happens if you're a performer and you're in Oxford or Cambridge. It's something you do. Whereas for I consider myself working class because I was brought up working class, even though my accent suggests otherwise. But you're working class as well, and so the Edinburgh Fringe is financially out of reach for you. Even because you work as a working class comedian, you have your day job and then you do comedy at night, and there's no extra money. There's nothing. To
and I think what people don't realize, like comedy, it takes a while to earn even pocket change.
Yes.
I think it was like 3-4 years until I was earning like anything, where I could like give myself a little treat. And by little treat, I mean, a meal out. That took 3-4 years. Like for 3-4 years of earning, like gigging for nothing. Literally nothing, not even expenses. Like, they expect you to go to like the arse end of nowhere in a car share where you punt up the petrol money, but you don't get any money at the gig, not even
No.
not even a tenner. Like I will always give, like if I run gigs now, and I don't run many, I run like one in every blue moon, but I make sure the open act gets paid expenses. So if they got a car over, if they got a train over, whatever, they're getting something for their troubles.
Should always pay someone if they're entertaining. Even like you've been and performed at my gigs, even again like 25 quid minimum, just something that covers it, just so that because even you would pay anyone. Like if you just calls your sister over and you said, "Come here, help us out." You'd if they were helping you out at a birthday party, you'd give them food and stuff. I don't know why they're not invited to it. But I
mean, the guy, someone came to change our Sky box the other day, and it was the day after my sister's birthday. So we had loads of cake left over, and I thought, "Would you like some cake?" And he was like, "Oh, yes." And so he was fixing our Sky box, and he got to have some iron brew and cake. But that's just because he was
it's just nice what you do.
I offered him a cup of tea, like you do it. Like I treated him like a builder. Yeah. And he was like,
pretended you were Manly.
Yeah, I'm an engineer. Iron brew, please. So I got him some iron brew and cake, and he just had a lovely time.
He had a lovely time. You have to do that. You have to be nice. So yeah, you did all that. Very successful. Now you've been on all sorts of TV shows, and you had your own. What happened with Tez Talks? How did that come about?
So Tez Talks was my radio show, and that came about from my first Edinburgh show, Tez Talks. It was my Edinburgh show in 2015. Yeah. Oh, I'm full of them, bro. When I do Tezington World of Adventures, then that's going to be my retirement show. Yeah. So if you see that next year or 50 years from now, you're like, okay, he's done with this now. That's his final.
End of Tez's career.
The last hurrah. So Tez Talks was the show we took to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, a solo show, one-man show in 2015. Went really, really well. And the BBC radio people came to look at it. They loved it, and they wanted to turn it into a radio show. And so that's what we did. And we've now done 3 series of that. And it lives on everywhere you can get your podcasts from. So whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or BBC Sounds or whatever, Tez Talks is available. There's 16 episodes, and they're only 15 minutes each. And it is stand-up in front of a live audience. And it's very well edited and put together, and I'm very proud of it. So,
you should be. You should be.
So, and it was original on BBC Radio 4, which again was a thing that I didn't know was a thing.
You didn't know about Radio 4.
BBC Radio. I knew that it existed in that because you see it, but I didn't know BBC Comedy. That's where BBC Radio Comedy lived. I didn't even know much about BBC Radio Comedy. The first time they invited me onto the Now Show, which is BBC Radio 4's, it is the flagship comedy show for BBC Radio 4. Hugh Dennis of Mock the Week fame and Steve Punt, his comedy partner, they've been doing it for 25 years. Chris, I didn't know what it was. And when the producer invited me on, I thought they were inviting me on to like the radio equivalent of the One Show.
Right.
And I was so close to turning it down.
Right.
Until my agent was like, well, just hear them out. And I think my agent assumed I knew what it was.
Yes. Yeah. So
he didn't say, she didn't say, oh, it's a comedy show. She just like, well, just hear them out. Assuming I knew what it was, and I was just being weird. Or maybe she thought my anxiety was getting the better of me or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they spoke to me, and then about 5 minutes in, I was like, is this a comedy show? Just the way they were talking was suggesting it was a comedy show. And I was like, they were like, yes. And I was like, oh yeah, of course I'll do it. Yeah. They must have been so bizarre for them.
Mate. I think that's a working class thing where we just weren't brought up with those kind of things. I hadn't even been to, so when I started doing stand-up, I hadn't even been to live comedy because it was just tickets to live comedy were like expensive, and they just.
I think I'd been to see Jimmy Carr live in Blackburn, where I'm from. I'd been to see Chris Rock live in Birmingham.
Yeah.
And I think I'd been to see like the improv show at the Comedy Store on a date.
Right, yeah.
The Comedy Store Players, I think it's called. I think I'd been to see them on a date, but I'd never been to see a mixed bill.
I didn't even know
the stuff that we do.
Yeah, the stuff that we do.
I'd never been to one. Yeah.
No, because it's expensive, and you were like, I don't know these people.
Yeah, exactly. There's that. Yeah. So my first mixed bill I went to was homework from the workshop. They sent us homework, like go and watch a gig. So we went to watch the 99 Club in Leicester Square.
Good choice.
And like Scott Kapura was headlining, and I was like, this guy's so funny. Oh my god, he's so funny, and now he's a mate. It's so weird.
It's so weird, right? That's what I was like. I was saying this to my kids know comics that are like massively famous because they've just been here. You know, they've come to do my gig and then come around the house beforehand for dinner. Like Desiree stayed over a bunch of times. Imran came over and played Switch with the girls. And they'll go back to school and they'll be like, oh, yeah, I know that person from that reality TV show. They've been and stayed at the house a bunch of times. The kids think they're liars. Like, they think that they're lying, that they've met this person.
I have it with man like Mobeen because, like, all of my cousins have got kids and I've got nieces and nephews. And my niece and nephew is a bit more circumspect, they're a bit more shy. But my cousin's kids are like, yeah, we know Tez, he's my uncle, he's my dad's cousin or whatever. And the kids do not believe them. No. And so I've had to tell my cousins to tell their kids, to tell their friends, I mean, to make sure they do not tell their friends where I live.
Jesus Christ, really?
Because they're kids, right? They're like, I know where he lives. And the kids are like, well, no, you don't. And they're like, I'll show you. Because it's on the way home. And they're like, there, he lives there. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Stop telling people my address.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, mate. But that's great. So Man Like Mobeen, you really successful show. Just been nominated for 2 BAFTAs, did I see?
Yeah, so we got nominated last year for Best Comedy Show, and Gus Khan got nominated for Best Male Comedy Performance. Yeah. And we just got the same nominations again this year. Fantastic. So I'm in a show that's a 4-time BAFTA nominated show.
It's incredible, but that's not it. There's a list of successes in here, a list of achievements, Live at the Apollo, all those kind of things. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And you met, but what I want to go back to, because that's what this show is about, and obviously I don't want to skip over it too much. You went back to anxiety, and I know that during all of this success, during your career, which has been fantastic, and it's been, and you're a lovely guy as well. You stayed humble. Some people I found with whenever they become a comedian, they go from being like a normal person to being a weirdo, and but it happens to all of us, and we just don't want to talk to people who aren't good at comedy, so I get it. But you you don't want to make the friend, because you don't want them to come off the stage and be like, cool.
Well, it's the how do you think that was? And you're like, how did you think it went?
It was interesting. That's the word. Interesting.
It happened.
It happened. The worst thing you can ever say about someone is he's a nice guy, or they're a nice person.
God. Oh my God.
The worst. If someone says about you, if they're like, if you're talking to someone, and I mean in a gig, in a comedy world thing, if you say to someone, what do you think of this comedian? And they say, they're a nice person. That's the first thing they say. Oof. You're not booking them. Yeah. you're not booking. Yeah. So I know that's in my bio. Chris Purchase, nice person. That's just in my comedy CV out there. But I put it there first. But for you, you've gone through, just get it preemptive. But you have done all this success, and I know that you've had a lot of anxiety because you wouldn't know it now, but you suffered with alopecia all the way through your career. How did that start?
It was weird because I didn't even know Chris didn't realize I had anxiety until last year during the pandemic. Right. Because we all have some level of anxiety. Every person does, because otherwise you've got nothing to do in your life. Even if you're like, oh, I've got to take the pins out, you're anxious until you can take the pins out. Everyone's got some sort of anxiety, and I didn't know I had it. But I first had alopecia in my beard, so like I lost a chunk of hair. So for people who don't know, it's hair loss. That is temporary. It can be temporary hair loss. For some people it can be permanent, but it's generally temporary hair loss. And so there's like 1p coin in my beard just here, and I was like, what the? I'd never heard of the term. I didn't know what it was. So that's really weird. What is that? And I didn't go to the doctor about it. It just kind of over I think 3 or 4 months, the hair just grew back. So I was like, oh, whatever. And then over the subsequent years, I just started getting patches here, and then eventually I lost this entire bottom bit, just disappeared completely. Jeez, yeah. And then I had like I basically had a holy beard, is what I called it. Yeah. So I'd start shaving it, and I kept trying to keep it clean shaven, which I didn't necessarily want to. And then in 2016, I came back on holiday from Morocco with my boys, and I noticed I had like a little thing here, little thing, and having noticed the signs on my beard, I was like, oh my God, it's not, is it? But I kind of tried to stay positive, and I thought, no, it can't be that, it'd be fine. But then just over the months, it started growing and growing and growing and growing, and eventually I got like a massive hole here, and I was like trying to cover it up with my hair like this, doing a really bad job. And then I got a I got a big patch, equally big patch on the back of my head here. So I just eventually just shaved my head. And so I just went with the bald head. But weirdly, my beard healed
Right.
at the time that my hair went. So such a weird timing. So April 2017 was when I shaved my hair.
Yeah.
And it was about the same time that the beard grew back fully. Or at least this bit. Like I still hadn't, this bit took a bit of time, the bit at the bottom. But at least the top bit, you could be like, oh, he's got a beard again. So then I could at least have bald head with a beard as opposed to completely shave everything. But that was hard. The beard one was like, it ended up being like a conversation. I didn't like it, but the conversation started fine. But with the hair, I just started wearing caps because also my hair grows really, really fast. And so when I went to the barbers, like, they do the razor shave, close shave, and then for a day or 80 or a day and a half, it's fine. And then it starts, the shadow grows and then you can see that the big patch here and stuff. And I'm not, I wasn't bald. I had a full head of hair. So it was just like, this is not fair. This is not fair. Like I have a full head of hair. So I started wearing caps to everything. That's when I started ditching the suits. So I could wear a hat. So I ditched the suits more casual. So I could wear a cap on stage. And that's when that decision came. And it's something that I learned to live with. And then a friend of mine, my cousin in Blackburn's got a friend, and we were hanging out once, and he was like, I just want to ask you about your alopecia. And I was like, oh, I got semi-annoyed when people brought it up because I'm like, people are like, I remember once when I was in my beard and I went to my cousin's house and some random auntie was there. When I say auntie, I mean a family friend was there. And she looked at me and she went, oh, what's happened to your face? She didn't say hello. She didn't say, how are you? She didn't say, oh, I see you've got the thing. She just went, what's wrong with your face? And I just turned around and went to her, what's wrong with your face? You've gone really old.
Oh, and wow.
My mum and my aunt were proper panicking. Oh, you can't. And I was like, well, tell her not to be rude then. In Asian families, we have this big thing about respecting elders as well. And I was like, as far as they were concerned, I was like way out of line.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, she started it, innit? Like, and they were like, yeah, but she's older. And I'm like, well, next time she won't do it to someone else. Because she was like really taken aback.
Well, of course.
And I was like, well, screw her, innit? Like, what about my feelings? So I was really self-conscious about it. And like it was one of those things. I didn't mind talking about it when I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when other people brought it up, I was like, maybe I don't want to talk about it right now. Like read the room a little bit. But yeah, when it spread to my hair, that's when I got super self-conscious about it. Especially when it was like 3-4 day growth, and you could see like a big patch there. So like I always wore a cap and stuff to hide it. And then yeah. So so I always thought it was like kind of stress related, and I thought, what's going on in my life? Because I've never, like, as far as I'm aware, I've never been diagnosed with depression or whatever. So I thought, well, maybe that's my body's way of dealing with the stress and anxiety. Instead of taking it out on my brain, it takes it out on my body. So, and then I spoke to my cousin, one of his mates and stuff. We were just hanging out, and he was like, he wanted to bring me up. And then it turns out he had vitiligo.
Yes.
The condition that makes your skin go white.
Yeah. So
he was suffering from that. So then I thought, oh, okay, twins, not exactly twins, but cousins. We've got a thing that we can share. And he was saying that he was explaining how he'd halted the process, and I was like, oh, and apparently like everything is gut related. And he's like, I was eating the wrong foods, and therefore, some weird sciencey thing about the gut. He was like, oh, go to this guy, he did a test. So I went to this guy. I forgot what the name of the test. And he basically just tested me for all my allergies and intolerances.
Right. Yeah.
And it turns out I was gluten intolerant.
Oh, wow.
And that was a large part of it. So I went gluten free. And then when I doing research, I found out that corticosteroids are something that can be effective against alopecia. There's a cream. I tried the cream, didn't work for me. The last resort was injections. I was on the NHS waiting list, or like I was waiting for an appointment for like 3 months, and then I missed it because I had a gig. So I had to wait another 3 months, and I was like, oh, it's taking forever. I happened to be in Dubai visiting my best friend, and they had like a private clinic downstairs. So I just walked in, and I was like, do you guys do like corticosteroid injections? They were like, what's the issue? And I got alopecia. So they booked me with a dermatologist the next day. And that same afternoon, she gave me the injections.
Oh, right.
Like, it cost me like 200. Yeah, and it worked. And then, so I think they were like the accelerant. and then I think going gluten free kind of kept it off.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's kind of what made my hair grow back.
And
so
has
now
it?
I've got this luscious head of hair.
You have. It's very thick.
I haven't been to the barber yet. I'm waiting till Eid. So to go to the barber.
I like that your hair now represents the same hair that you've got on the front of your book. That's what I like.
yeah.
It almost seems like a publicity stunt. Like you've done it on purpose, so people know that it's the same person.
That's definitely me.
But did it affect your mental health? Would you say that, like, having alopecia, did it affect your self-esteem?
It definitely affected my self-esteem.
Yeah,
definitely. Like I was definitely more anxious. Like, you know, if you're single, trying to chat someone up or whatever, it definitely affected like my chat.
Your banter.
Yeah. No, it definitely. Like I always wore a hat. Like I was a hatfish.
Hatfish.
As the
Is
phrase
that your own
goes.
term?
No, someone else. I found it on the internet. But yeah, I was a hatfish.
It's just reveal.
Yeah. So but yeah, no, definitely affected my self-esteem and stuff. It's weird like how much our physical appearance affects our self-esteem, right? I look great twice a month after I've been to the barbers.
Right.
After being to the barbers, and whatever the barber does lasts about 2 days.
Right. Yeah.
And I generally go at least once, sometimes twice a month. So about 2 to 4 days a month, I look banging. The rest of the time, I'm just getting by.
Oh, I don't agree. I think
that's how I feel, though.
That's how you feel. Oh, see, see, how you feel is a different thing. I think you're always pretty much on point. Like I've seen you a lot, and I've seen you a lot. That makes it sound like I'm in your house, but I've seen you a bunch, and every single time I've seen you, you're well put together. You're like you look good. You look good now.
Well, that's very kind. That's very kind, but that's so different to how you feel, right?
Exactly.
It's like when you have a gig and you come off and people are like, "Oh, that was great," and you're like, "I wasn't feeling it. I didn't feel like." Because we had gigs where we come off going, "That was great," and you feel it yourself. You're like, "I love that. That was brilliant." And you have other gigs where some people might think, or some people might come to you like, "That was brilliant," but you don't necessarily feel it yourself.
Yes.
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that, I guess.
Yeah. And I think probably an important part of it is that you can do it, right? Now that it's grown back and stuff, you can now go and get it done and it's a great feeling, right? That's got to be a fantastic.
Yeah.
I would compare it to my weight loss, because I lost 10 stone. And now when I go and buy, I feel great. But if I can't do a coat up because of, like, I've put half a stone on over lockdown, for example, and I'm like, I get really like, it doesn't really matter, you know, I can just lose it, but I get really sad. Even though I've because it's a little bit tight, and I'd compare it to that, right? It doesn't matter. No one's like,
because I would have noticed, like your friends probably would have noticed, but you know, I've done the same. Like I've put on weight during this lockdown, and I've like, you got quite a big frame, or a bigger frame than mine. Like I don't have I'm 5'8", I have a smaller frame, and so I don't feel like a lot of, like when I gain weight, it doesn't necessarily suit me. So I'm conscious of that right now. Like I'm not being too worried about it because it is lockdown. I'm not like, you know, like it is.
We've all gained weight over lockdown.
Yeah. But as the world is opening back up again in May, June, or whenever it is, I'm just conscious. I'm like, I just want to lose this. Like I'm the heaviest I am, or like I'm the heaviest I was 3 weeks ago. It's Ramadan now, so I don't know if that's made a difference. What a difference it'll make. But I don't have scales in the house. I have them at my dad's house. My dad has some scales, or my sisters, I should say, have some scales at my dad's house. So I probably next time I'm over, I might check it out. What if I've recovered any? But I don't. Yeah, I just need to like, because like I have one shirt that fits me.
Right. But that's the thing. I'm okay with you, like, not you personally, but I'm okay. I've got a problem with people when they're trying to hit like a number, because your body doesn't know what that number is. Your body isn't like, I will be healthy at 16 stone, but I'm unhealthy at 16 and a half stone. It doesn't know that. Whereas if you're trying to fit into clothing that you did have and you're trying to go, I understand that, because I don't want to have to buy a whole new wardrobe. That's expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what my problem is. But so no, I wasn't going to talk about weight with you, but because I think that alopecia is something that people don't talk about, and they're very worried about talking about, and it affects, like you say, self-esteem. So I'm very aware that we've been talking for half an hour about it. But I would say, what would you say to people who are suffering with it that have self-esteem issues? Is there any advice you could give to people openly that helped you?
Honestly, people no one's laughing at you, first of all.
That's
So
important.
so no one's laughing at you, no one's pointing at you going Humpty Dumpty over here. Like, no one's doing that. And also it's not your hair. Your hair is not who you are
Yeah.
as a person. Like I realized that. Like I kind of, towards the end of it, I kind of got over it.
Yeah.
And like I still wore a hat and stuff, but I was significantly less self-conscious about it. And it got to the point where I was like, well, if this is my life, this is my life. Like, people go bald and stuff. And
Yeah.
people who in their 20s would have had like shoulder length hair.
Yeah.
Lads, they go bald and stuff, like, like rockers and stuff. Like, it does happen. So it's something you have to live with. And no one's saying Bruce Willis is unattractive. You know what I mean?
No.
Like,
I still would.
no one's ever said that. Even in, Die Hard, which was like 30 years ago, he was bald in that, let alone now.
Oh yeah, he was.
So like, no one's saying that. So it's you can change how you feel about it, because no one else is really that bothered.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. No one else is that bothered. So
They might bring you up once. Like, if someone hasn't seen you for a while,
yeah.
they might bring you up, and that can trigger a bit of like, self-esteem issues and feeling sorry for yourself and stuff. If someone says like, "Oh, you're bald now. Where's your hair gone?" Oh, and then they'll move on within 5 minutes. They'll move on.
Yeah, they will.
And then it's up to you how much you let that affect you. If you're kind of like, okay, this person hasn't seen me. This person hasn't seen me for a bit. Of course they're gonna bring you up. It'd be weird if they didn't. In the same way that if your missus or your partner cuts their hair, you're like, oh, you've cut your hair, or you're at work and someone's cut their hair over the weekend, you're like, oh, you cut your hair, it looks great. If someone changes their appearance a bit, we tend to comment on it.
Yes.
Even those of us who might have had something like alopecia, like, if like, I know if my friends have gained weight. Like, but these are like good friends of mine, not
just good friends.
Not just good friends.
Don't do it to the cashier in Tesco.
Yeah. Bro, what's going on? And like, oh man, yeah, whatever. Like, it's what it is. Like, it just kind of, what people say and how people say and act. It's still up to you how you react to that.
Yeah.
How you react is up to you.
Yeah, that's an important. I think that's something that people don't realize, is that people don't think about them as much as they think they do.
No, they don't.
Yeah. Once
the amount of times something's, it's like when someone's it's like when someone says something on Twitter, like someone says something about Twitter, something backhanded, and you're like, oh, are they talking about me?
Yeah.
They must be talking about me. Like, you didn't cross their mind. They're just talking about something generally, and you're like, oh, did they mean me?
Yeah.
No, they didn't. They didn't mean you. No.
Yeah, exactly. And even if they did, what does it matter? It's one in 1,000,000 tweets that are being sent that second. It's like, it'll be gone in an hour.
Some like friends of mine are like, oh, don't say that about me on stage. I'm like, no one knows who you are. Yes. I don't mention your name or change your name or whatever. No one knows who you are, so don't worry about it. But I know who I am. I'm like, all right, well, then you can figure out how you want to react to it.
Well, yeah. You choose how you react to the world.
Yeah,
it's a good point.
So I've tried to don't remember, like, that's easier said than done. I understand that. That is very easy to say, and we all have different triggers and we all have different emotional states. I understand that, but it is still up to you how you react to things, because you can't control other people and how they behave and how they react to things. And it's like road rage. You can't control other cars on the road, but you can control how you react to other cars on the road. And I say that as someone who does occasionally get road rage.
Was I right in thinking that you're a newer driver, more recent?
No. I've been driving for a long time. No.
Okay.
I bought a car when I left London and moved back home.
That was it. Yeah.
I bought myself a nice car because I was saving so much money on rent.
Yeah, from not being in London. That's what it was.
No, so I have had my license since like after uni.
That's I think it was the new car. So I was going to be like, oh wow. So, but yeah, so it's great. I think that's a very good thing. People's perception of you is not your problem. Just whatever. And often, like you say, when they say something like that, it's not. They're not being horrible. Most of the time, they're just reacting.
Most of the time, people just need something to say. I remember I had to tell my mum off a couple of weeks ago because we were coming back into the house. We've been like doing the Tesco shopping or whatever, and the lady from a couple of doors up came out of a house. And I think she'd been ill for a little bit. Maybe I don't know if she'd have the corona or something, but she'd been ill for a little bit. And my mum just brought it up. She was like, "Oh, you're looking a bit weak or whatever." In Punjabi, like translates better. She's like, "Oh, you're looking a bit weak." And I just looked up. I just went inside, and I could see the woman's reaction. Like she had a split second of like, and then she carried on. Like she just answered the question like normal.
Yeah.
But just when my mum came in, I was like, that was so unnecessary. And my mum realized, to her credit, my mum was like, I know. Like as soon as I said it, I felt really bad.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have said it, and I felt really bad about it. But so my mum recognized that.
Yeah.
I was like, Mum, there was no need to say that about her. Like you could just say, how are you and stuff. Like no need to talk about what she looks like.
Yeah. But and it's consideration. But I think again, that's a generational thing. Like my mum would do the same thing. My mum would have been like, she would have commented because that's just, and like you say, it's just something to say. That's all they're doing. Is they're just saying something. Thank you very much for coming here, Tez. Tez, tell everyone where people can find you. Where can they find you if they want to pick up your book, if they want to see your shows?
So I am at Tez Ilyas everywhere on the socials, and the socials are mainly Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok now. I'm also on Twitch, Tez Ilyas on Twitch. I stream. I'm a variety streamer. I'm an inconsistent variety streamer.
Inconsistent streamer.
But I like having fun on there. It's good fun. And tezilyas.com/hello is my link tree, is my link to all my things, so where you can buy my book, where you can buy my tour tickets. I'm on tour this autumn throughout the entire country, so please come to a show. And all the works that I've done that Chris has referenced, all the links to that are there. tezilyas.com/hello.
Brilliant. I'll put links, so for those of you listening, there'll be a link in the description of this podcast, and for those of you watching, it'll be in the comments below, or just be in the description of this video. So thanks again, Tez, for joining us here on the Mental Health Bar and opening up about your alopecia. That was very nice of you. We'll be back next week with another Mental Health Bar. Thanks very much, everyone. Stay safe.